All right. So some potentially unsettling news you sent over about this bird flu thing.
Yeah.
The headline from Scientific American, definitely attention-grabbing, suggests that, we might be just one mutation away from like a serious pandemic.
Uh-huh.
And then on top of that, we've got news about bird flu in dairy cows and some interesting opinions on raw milk consumption.
Right. Yeah.
That-
It's definitely a combination of things that, raises some eyebrows, especially with the potential for this virus to mutate.
Yeah.
The Scientific American article really lays out a scenario that's got scientists worried.
It seems like this particular strain of bird flu,
Right.
H5N1, is closer than we thought to being
Yeah.
easily transmissible between humans.
Uh-huh.
What's so different about this particular situation that's making everyone so nervous?
They've identified a single mutation in the virus that could make it much more efficient at attaching to human cells,
Oh, wow.
and specifically in our upper respiratory tract, and that's concerning. Yeah.
Because the upper respiratory tract is basically the entry point for all sorts of respiratory viruses.
I mean, it's like this mutation is giving the virus like a key to unlock the door to our cells.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
And previous pandemic flu viruses, usually required multiple mutations to make that kind of jump to easily infecting humans.
Right.
This time it seems like it might only take this one single mutation.
That's kind of alarming, like the
Right.
virus is getting smarter.
Yeah.
The article also mentioned a case of a Canadian teenager hospitalized
Right.
with a severe case of bird flu.
Yeah.
Is there a connection there?
That case is definitely adding to the concern.
Yeah.
The virus strain in that case showed a mutation in the same spot identified in the lab study.
Hmm.
Now, it's still early, and we need more research to confirm if this specific mutation is directly responsible for the severity of that case.
Right.
But it's a red flag for sure.
It's a reminder that this isn't just theoretical,
Yeah.
There are real-world consequences.
To how this virus is evolving.
Absolutely. And we have to keep in mind that viruses are constantly mutating.
Right.
Most of those mutations are harmless or even detrimental to the virus itself.
Sure.
But occasionally a mutation pops up that gives it a survival advantage. And in this case, that advantage could mean being better at infecting humans.
So what does this mean for the average person who's, not a virologist,
Yeah.
but who is still trying to stay informed and healthy?
I think the key takeaway here is to stay informed but not panic.
Okay.
The Scientific American article is laying out a potential scenario,
Right.
and it's based on solid research,
Uh-huh.
but more research is needed to determine the actual risk of this virus becoming easily transmissible between humans.
Okay.
So, stay informed, be aware,
Yeah.
but don't lose sleep over it.
You're right. Don't run to the bunker just yet.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's, it's a bit like we're watching a slow motion train wreck that could potentially derail,
Right.
We know the risks are there, but we're not sure how it's all going to play out.
And speaking of risky situations,
Yeah.
you also included some articles about raw milk, bird flu contamination,
Uh-huh.
and some rather interesting opinions
Yeah.
on the matter.
For sure.
This seems to connect to that whole potential pandemic concern you were just talking about.
Yes, it definitely adds another layer to the story.
Okay.
The recent detection of bird flu in raw milk products has really reignited this whole debate about
Yeah.
the safety of consuming unpasteurized milk,
Right.
particularly in the context of this potential outbreak.
There seems to be a lot of conflicting information out there.
There is.
On the one hand, you have raw milk advocates
Right.
touting its supposed health benefits.
Yes.
And then on the other hand,
Yeah.
you have health experts warning about the potential dangers,
Right.
especially now with bird flu in the mix.
It's important to acknowledge that pasteurization, which
Right.
is that process of heating milk
Yeah.
to kill harmful bacteria. Right.
And viruses has been a cornerstone of public health for decades.
Right.
The scientific evidence overwhelmingly supports the safety of pasteurized milk.
Okay.
That's
But some folks,
Yeah.
like Robert F. Kennedy Jr.,
right.
a vocal proponent of raw milk consumption,
Yeah.
seem to disagree.
Yes.
And the fact that he's been nominated to lead the Department of Health and Human Services under the incoming Trump administration
Yeah,
is raising some eyebrows.
it is.
That nomination has certainly sparked a lot of discussion.
A lot of discussion for sure.
The articles you shared
Uh-huh.
highlight concerns about his stance on vaccines,
Yeah.
his support for raw milk
Right.
despite the current bird flu situation, and his apparent encouragement of the CEO of Raw Farm,
Yeah.
a raw milk producer, whose product was recalled
All right.
due to bird flu contamination to apply for an advisory role at the FBA.
Mm.
It seems like a bit of a contradiction.
Yeah. Encouraging someone
Right.
whose product was deemed unsafe due to bird flu
Right.
to advise the very agency responsible for food safety.
Yeah.
What's the logic there?
That's where things get a little bit more nuanced.
Okay.
While RFK Jr. has publicly acknowledged the dangers of consuming raw milk contaminated with bird flu,
Okay.
he also seems to believe that there's a distinction between consuming milk from a sick cow and consuming milk from a healthy cow in a clean environment.
So he's not advocating for drinking bird flu-infected milk.
Right.
But he still believes that raw milk, in general,
Yeah.
is safe and potentially even beneficial.
That seems to be the gist of his argument. He's even suggested that drinking raw milk from cows exposed to bird flu could potentially boost immunity.
But that goes against what most health experts are saying, right?
It absolutely does.
Okay.
The scientific consensus is that consuming raw milk,
Right.
especially during a bird flu outbreak, carries significant risks. There are no proven benefits to offset those risks and the potential consequences, particularly for vulnerable populations, could be severe.
And it's not just about individual health, right?
Yeah.
This also ties back to the potential for this virus to spread.
It does.
And potentially mutate into something more dangerous.
That's a key point.
Yeah.
While there are no confirmed cases of humans contracting bird flu from consuming raw milk, its presence in dairy products raises concerns about potential transmission routes.
Right.
You know, it's like...
So even if you believe in the supposed benefits of raw milk, you're essentially taking a gamble.
You are.
Not just for yourself, but potentially for public health as a whole.
Exactly. And in the context of a virus that could potentially trigger a pandemic, that gamble seems increasingly reckless.
It seems like this whole situation with the bird flu and the raw milk debate highlights like a bigger issue.
Right.
The tension between personal beliefs
and scientific evidence.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing to have personal preferences.
Right.
But when those preferences clash with public health recommendations, that's where things get tricky.
It's a delicate balance, for sure. You know, we live in a society that values individual freedom and the right to make choices about our own bodies and health.
Right.
But we also have a collective responsibility to protect the well-being of the community as a whole.
And when it comes to something like a potential pandemic, those individual choices can have ripple effects that extend far beyond ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why clear and accurate information is so crucial. People need to understand the risks involved, not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. And that information needs to be presented in a way that's both accessible and credible.
Which brings us back to RFK Jr.'s potential role as head of the Department of Health and Human Services.
Right. Some of the articles you sent over express concern about his history of promoting views that are not aligned with scientific consensus, particularly regarding vaccines and raw milk.
Those concerns are understandable.
Right.
When someone in a position of authority promotes ideas that contradict scientific evidence, it can erode public trust in health institutions and experts.
Like that old saying, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing.
It is.
If people are getting their health information from sources that are not reliable or evidence-based, it can lead to them making decisions that put themselves and others at risk.
That's why it's so important to be critical consumers of information, especially when it comes to our health. We need to evaluate sources, consider different perspectives, and be willing to update our beliefs when presented with new evidence.
It's like being a detective, right?
It is.
You gather the clues, weigh the evidence, try to arrive at the most logical conclusion.
Exactly. And sometimes that means acknowledging that we might have been wrong or that our initial assumptions need to be adjusted.
So with all this in mind, how do we navigate this complex landscape of information?
It's tough.
Misinformation and personal beliefs.
I think it comes down to a few key things. First, be aware of your sources of information. Are they credible? Are they evidence-based? Are they transparent about their biases?
It's like checking the ingredients list on a food label.
Right, exactly.
You want to know what you're putting into your body. Both physically and mentally.
Yeah, for sure. Second, don't be afraid to ask questions. If something doesn't seem right, or you're unsure about the validity of a claim, Reach out to a trusted healthcare professional or consult reputable sources of information.
And finally, be open to changing your mind.
Be open.
Yeah.
Science is a process of constant discovery and refinement. What we know today might be different from what we knew yesterday.
That's the beauty of science. It's always evolving.
Always evolving.
And as informed citizens, we need to evolve with it.
We do.
Yeah.
For sure.
This has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
Albeit a bit unsettling at times.
A little bit.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
From the science of bird flu and virus mutations to the complexities of raw milk consumption.
Right.
And the importance of critical thinking in a world saturated with information.
It's a lot.
It's a reminder that we live in a complex and interconnected world.
We do.
Where our individual choices can have far-reaching consequences.
Absolutely.
But it's also a reminder that we have the power to make informed decisions that protect ourselves.
We do.
Our communities and our planet.
Right.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
yeah.
here's something to ponder.
Okay.
How can we, as individuals and as a society, foster a greater understanding of science and promote a culture of critical thinking, especially when it comes to our health and well-being?
Great question.
It's a question worth considering.
Yeah.
As we navigate the challenges and opportunities of our ever-changing world.
It is, for sure.
Stay curious, stay informed, and stay well.